Start tonight's meeting of the Finance Committee. Our agenda is pretty straightforward. Evan, do you want to kick us off?
Hey, thank you. The first thing on the agenda, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the financial report for the month of December, ending December. Not a lot of new things on here. I mean, the majority of our budget, which is salary and benefits or personnel costs, makes up, $43 million of our $57 million budget. We're 35% of the way through that budget category, which to me is extremely encouraging, especially when you look at the big categories of salaries and health insurance. So we have a balance remaining in our salaries of $350,000 and our health insurance, $737,000. So in really good shape there. Some of the other categories, if you're looking like liability insurance, it shows that we're 73% of the way there. That's paid on a quarterly basis, and we paid our third quarter in December, meaning it looks like we're 75% of the way through that, but it shouldn't go up until about March, when it'll in theory be about 100% expended. So,
and these numbers are through December, is that correct?
yeah, end of December, which would be halfway through the fiscal year.
That's great.
So if we're looking at the budget as a whole, we have about $9.5 million left. We are going to be, working through a lot of that. We pay our capital leases, a majority of them in January. So, some of that money is going to start to come off our books. So we're not going to end the year with close to $9 million whatsoever. But we're 37% of the way through our budget with, like I said, 6 months through the fiscal year.
And so, yeah, so when you say that 9 million balance remaining, that's 9 million beyond the presumption of the rest of the salaries, for example, right? Because obviously we have more than $9 million worth of salaries we'll be paying over the next 6 months.
Correct. Yeah, we have expenditures encumbered, which is this category right here where my mouse is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is salaries and benefits and a couple other categories set aside already to pay for those.
We like that category.
We like that category a lot. Last year, we encumbered the salaries. We didn't encumber all the benefits. And that was just a system error. It was a back-end thing that hadn't been set up properly in the system going back a number of years. I guess there was a manual way they used to do it, but figured out how to encumber all the salaries and the benefits so that there's no surprises throughout the year with those expenses.
Great.
Especially when that's such a large part of almost 75% of our budget. You don't want to have any of that just sitting out there. That could be taken by another account, but not that that would happen, just saying that it's best to be conservative.
You'd rather know where the money is allocated pretty clearly.
Correct. So yeah, I'm tracking this stuff very closely. We have all the categories between regular staff, substitutes, overtime, stipends, all of those things. Those are set aside. So like stipends, even we know that we're going to pay out coaches if they've been hired. So we already set that money aside. And that's, like I said, so there's no surprises later in the year.
Awesome. That is great. I was thinking maybe we could make a folder on the Finance Committee drive for financial reports, and just every month when you give us one of these, you could drop it in there just so we could see that at a glance.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think for this fiscal year, I have quarter one, which was July, August, and September. And then in October, I started moving to a monthly. So
I think that's whatever you've got. I'm not trying to make you retroactively create them or anything, but yeah, I think what you've shown us, I think we can drop it in there. That'd be perfect.
Awesome.
Excellent. Kim, so what we just saw here is the financial update. And we are approximately 35% expended, which is 37.4% expended. There we go, which is right where Evan wants us to be. And so far, no one has had any questions. It doesn't look like we're going to have any, so I don't know if you have any questions. But you are good, Kim. Don't you worry. We've all been there. All right. So great. That's awesome, Evan. Thank you. And I really appreciate the close and weather eye you're keeping all this stuff. That really, at least I think, gives us a lot of confidence. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to stop sharing it because I know the main part of the agenda here is the maintenance of effort budget presentation. So I'm just going to pull that up. Yeah, the marching band is doing great.
Let's, yeah. Right here, this is my request. Okay. Thank you. I didn't mean you.
All right.
As Evan gets started, as a reminder to the committee members and board members is that we have access to this on the Finance Committee shared Google Drive as the digital finance binder of the year. If that doesn't work for anybody, you may request a paper binder and it will be provided, but this will be the place that these documents can live and be found. So it's got folders representing the tabs, so it should be very easy to keep track of and peruse.
All right, thank you. So this is the msad number 75 fiscal year 2027 budget process, MOE budget overview. Budget process and MOE budget overview. And it's for the Finance Committee. So I wanted to talk about some of my desired outcomes. I know the Finance Committee has their own, mission statement, if you will, but these are, when I have started thinking about this budget for this year, my desired outcomes are a budget that's centered around the needs of the students, first and foremost. Second, a budget that supports the strategic plan of the district and our individual schools. And third, a budget that strikes the right balance between the needs of students and the needs of taxpayers within the context of state downshifting of financial responsibility to the local level. So these are my guiding stars throughout this process, and I just wanted to share that as we go through this. So the maintenance of effort, MOE budget, for short, these are a couple areas with cost assumptions. So the MOE budget definition is the level of spending required to maintain the current level of staffing, programs, and services. What this does, it projects personnel costs, it projects benefits, it gives each school an allocation. We also fund capital maintenance. We're going to look at debt service and then inter-fund transfers. So for the current fiscal year 2026, we have a budget of $57,876,308, and with no changes to any of the spending or what we're doing whatsoever, we have a fiscal year 2027 $61,857,356, which is a 3.9 million increase over last year, and that is 6.88%. And I'll dig into why these numbers are significant and the assumptions that go along with it. The first is personnel cost projections. So we have collective bargaining agreements in place for the 2026 and 2027 school year for teachers and support staff. We are waiting on the technology group for their negotiations to happen, but each staff member was evaluated based on where they lie within the collective bargaining agreement or individual contracts that they have within the district. Some good news here is that the main PERS rate, which is the state-funded retirement program for teachers and administrators, that rate that we are required to pay went from 4.47 last year to 4.36. So that's a bit of good news on the cost projection side. But there are assumed cost increases, so these are very much assumed and not final, of an increase of 15% for health insurance and 8% for dental. And why I use these numbers is because last year for health insurance, we ended up at 13.8 with an increase, and for dental right around 8 as well. So wanted to be conservative and go a little bit high and hope that we come in under by the time we get our allocation from our insurance provider in the next couple months. Another cost driver for fiscal year 2027 is that this is going to be the first full year of paid family medical leave, which requires the employer and the employee to split 1% of the employee's salary. So we're on the hook for 0.5% of each salary of every employee. Some non-personnel cost drivers. We came in last fiscal year around 18% with our property and liability insurance, so I conservatively put that same figure in. And then also with our utilities, we are seeing increases, particularly with electricity, and that's the delivery charge. So we're locked in with our rates for our usage, but the delivery charge that we're getting from CMP continues to go up year over year. And that is one of the cost drivers that we're seeing. I want to talk about the school allocation process and how each of the elementary, middle, and high schools all work on their budgets. So each principal was provided a school allocation based on grade level and student enrollments. And this provides them flexibility in budgeting items within their allocation. So $645,000 was distributed in this manner. That's a 2.79% increase from the previous fiscal year. Items that are included in this allocation are books, supplies, postage, printing cost, site-specific staff development, and then other initiatives at the school. But things that are excluded from this are salaries and benefits for regular staff, contractual obligations, utilities, athletic, co-curricular costs, stipends, and special ed costs. I also wanted to touch on capital maintenance because we are in the midst of looking at the facilities master plan. So the current fiscal year 2026 allocation is $600,000 with an additional $100,000 for engineering and consulting services. The preliminary fiscal year 2027 allocation proposed by the facilities and finance committees is unchanged from 2026, and that's reflected in this maintenance of effort budget. And I wanted to highlight also that there's an additional $100,000 proposed as a new budget request that you'll see later on in this presentation. And just something to keep in mind is that future years will require more substantial planning and financial funding due to the results that we will see in the master plan coming up. I also wanted to talk about our debt service, and this is everything from school construction bonds and capital leases for school buses and other vehicles. We are paying off 5 bus leases in 2026. We are proposing within this maintenance of effort, and these costs are baked into the calculation of replacing 3 buses and 2 vans because they are higher mileage and nearing the end of their effective useful life. And we don't currently have any technology leases in this proposed MOE budget. We paid off a 3-year Apple lease this current fiscal year, so we don't have any leases on the books for technology going forward. Last year, our debt service budget was $6.48 million, and for fiscal year 2027, we're looking at $6.44, which is a decrease of $43,000. And that's normal. As we pay off these bonds, we pay less and less interest year over year. In terms of our bond schedule, we do have 3 bonds currently on our books. We have a roofing bond that matures in 2030, excuse me. The MAMS site improvement bond, which is the recladding and the envelope project, reaches maturity in 2033. And the bond for the high school reaches maturity in 2040. So we still have some time on several of those, but we will continue to see, as the years progress, less and less of a financial burden on our books because of these debts. I also wanted to highlight interfund transfers. Historically, we have transferred money from the general fund into other special revenue or enterprise funds, most notably the Orion and food service. And the only request this year, which is the same as last year, is $20,000 to support the Orion Performing Arts Center. And this is no change from 2026. And we are not requesting to fund food service in 2027 from the general fund. And finally, if you wanted to see a breakdown of how our warrants are looking and the overall increases, which I said is 6.8 at this point, here is a snapshot. A better way maybe to look at this, and I'm sorry that this is a bit grainy and crazy of a graphic here, but I thought that having 2 years of data plus this year and to see the changes in the budget was important. So these are all of our categories. It's every every line item in our budget broken out by a certain category, and it ties out directly to the same numbers that you saw on the previous slide. It has everything from salaries, benefits, staff development, contracted services, printing, Region 10, staff travel, everything that we pay for broken out into about 30 different categories here. And I can come back to this if there's questions at the end. Yeah.
Are new requests absorbed in the specific line here?
At this
Or will they
point,
be separate?
it's going to be separate.
Okay.
And to talk about new requests, which is not, like I said, not included, these are the personnel requests. When you hear from the principals and various administrators throughout the next couple budget meetings, they're going to touch on all of these things and why they want to see them. So for personnel related requests, and this is not saying that all of these requests will go through or that maybe any of them will, but I just wanted to put all of these out there so everyone had visibility into what the principals and directors feel the needs are within the district in terms of personnel. So we have paras going from 30 to 35 hours, 4 of them, a classroom teacher for grade 2 at Harpswell, 2 permanent floating subs at Woodside, a floating nurse at the middle school, which could then be used to travel to other schools if there's more of a need, an RTI professional at the high school. So this would provide academic and behavioral support at Mount Ararat and Region 10. Essentially, this person would travel with the students to and from. The next one, the courier position, funded by food service, so not included in this 547,000, would be to increase their position days from 215 to 260. Mechanic apprentice at transportation, and finally, a leave specialist at the district office, and this would be to assist with the implementation of the paid family medical leave program. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a sharp increase in staff taking leave, and we expect more of the same with this new program coming into effect.
And I'll just say, keep your questions in your mind. We'll ask the department heads questions about this stuff when they come. This is just a little, get your thought processes going preview. Yes, exactly.
The non-personnel requests, there's quite a few here on this list. We have several athletic-related requests, including 5 AED units to replace aging units that would be used in various locations throughout the district when athletic events are going on. We have a new need for a wrestling mat, which is held together by tape. Sideline chairs, maybe peek your head into the gym after this meeting, and because the current chairs are about 20 years old and could use a refresh. The ice machine can't keep up with the current demand. Our high jump package is aging. It sits out in the sun and is exposed to all the elements. This one's an interesting one. Water to the baseball field. I know this has been looked at in previous fiscal years, or maybe even when the new high school was going in, but I don't have a cost for that. I know it could potentially be very, very expensive. So I put a question mark there. Heidi Wright will talk more about this, but a tackle breaker sled is something that she thinks could be useful for the football team. And then the golf cart is aging and probably on its last leg, and a Polaris Ranger 500 could be useful. In terms of other requests that are non-personnel related, we have letters training, which is a PD, professional development initiative that would cost about $40,000. It would train teachers K through 5, and then another $10,000 would be those teachers could become trainers themselves and then train other staff members. Number 10, Gemini software licenses at the district level would be about $5,000. Very useful tool. Number 11 is vape and drug reduction at the high school. You'll hear more about this from Chris Hoffman, but he thinks that $35,000 could make significant progress with deterring students from vaping.
And he's discussed vape detectors in years past. This is not coming out of nowhere.
Safety and security. So we have a grant we submitted. What was the name of it? The COPS grant. And we did not get it, but we put about $650,000 worth of district-wide safety and security upgrades within that grant. And I thought it would be useful to reflect those same numbers here on this tab. For facilities and Woodside, a tractor / snowblower would replace $15,000 would be used to replace a 30-year-old snowblower. Acadian's math assessment, which is a universal screening tool for math proficiency. I'm in process of getting a quote. I think Amanda Hersey is working on that, but I don't have a number about that just yet. An evaluation and growth platform would cost about $4,000, and that would be to help teachers and school leaders in their growth as leaders. This is one that Sean Johansson instructed me to put on here. It's an additional $100,000 to begin to fund a major maintenance line within our budget. That would be added on to the $600,000 that we have already, taking it up to $700,000. MTSS Consultants. This is a special education request of $80,000, and this would be to help transition special education staff into the classroom, making all students general ed instead of having special ed and general ed students. Maybe Heidi can speak more to that if she has any insight.
And I think we spoke about it a little while ago at a board meeting where the new practice of, well, it's not a new practice, but the inclusion model that the special education department is working on. So Kate McLeod and her partner from UMF are consulting with us this year, and that's to continue to help them support our teachers, our teacher leaders, all staff in this process next year based on what we're doing starting now.
And then this one's important to me too, the number 18, the phone system upgrade. We heard in the technology presentation last year, Nick mentioned that the system that we have currently is aging, and they're not going to be able to continue to perform security updates on it going forward. Certainly we can still pick up the phone and call, but it is the security side of things that could be a bit challenging, and I'm sure he'll talk more about it in his presentation. But we did put about $50,000 into the budget for this year to upgrade our system. And in order to get us over the finish line, we would need an additional $23,000 to get us there.
And really quickly, just for anyone who is new to the process in the room or watching at home, we've seen the MOE number and we've seen these 2 pages of requests, personnel and non-personnel. These are not the final budget proposal coming from our superintendent. This is the preliminary list, but part of the real value in seeing this list before we have directed it to get weeded down, or Heidi has determined what she wants to bring forward to us, is so that we get that multi-year, hey, that's been on the list a bunch and we keep kicking the can on that. Like, for example, the vape detectors. We've seen that, I think, at least 2 years prior to now. So this list is long. We all know it is long. It will, what Heidi ends up recommending will not include every one of these items. But the advantage for us seeing it is to help just understand what is a recurring request, what is a long-term, function, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want anyone thinking this is all the stuff that we're totally going to recommend, but this is a very useful list of, I would say, a conservative and thoughtful series of requests by our administrators and department heads. But it will not necessarily be the final recommended budget.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And also, if we add up all these non-personnel related costs, it'd be just over $1 million. If we add personnel and non-personnel requests, it'd be $1.5 million, more or less. I put this questions and discussions here as a pause because I do have more slides to get through, because I think the number of 6.88 that I shared is pretty high for a lot of folks. And I just wanted to say that there's more work that we have done along the way, but I wanted to just have a pause here in case there was anything I could answer off the bat.
Could you speak about, 'cause this is a rookie question. I'm looking at the line about insurance, property and liability, and you said you have an estimate for 18%. And when I look at the 2027 budget by object code, in 2025 and between now and 2027, there's $100,000 increase. Just, could you talk to me just about like why it's going up, and is it just kind of always going to jump by $100,000 every 2 years?
Hopefully not, that it's not going to jump that much.
Is there any way we can reduce that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start by saying that in 2020 or 2019, before I was here, Mark Conrad did do an RFP to change our insurance company. So we used to be with MSMA Property and Liability, and we have since found better rates with Cross Insurance, who brokers us through Liberty Mutual. So we did do some work over the past 5 years to see if there were better rates, and we did find them. If we need to do that process again, we certainly can. There is a listserv that I'm a part of for Maine business managers, and someone today was asking for RFP language about bidding out for property and liability insurance. Cost drivers there, according to the insurance broker that I work closely with, he says it's natural disasters and just the overall cost of what building materials are and just overall increases in the economy due to inflation. So if we were to lose a building, the cost of replacing that building would be significantly higher. And then finally, one other cost driver there is that for a long time, well, no, it's just natural disasters and the cost of materials and such.
Can I do a follow-up? So the future is like buildings are going to get, something's going to happen. Either going to get new schools or renovated. Will insurance markets see that as a renovation or a new school as a reason to lower insurance rates for a building that's maybe more safe in a number of categories? And
Wonder. I think that's a great question that I can follow up on, certainly. Yeah, that's great. That's great to think about as we start planning for this next step of the facilities master plan.
Who else has some questions or thoughts? And I would add, while people are thinking, this preview of the requests that we'll see in future presentations. This is a good opportunity to think, oh, hey, I'd love to hear, Heidi Wright talk about this, or I'd love to hear Chris Hoffman talk about that. So you don't have to do it in this moment, but if you think of something you'd like to make sure gets covered in those presentations, you can email me and Evan, hey, make sure Heidi Wright sees this question. So I'm not trying to blindside her when she comes to present to us or whatever, right? So this is a good opportunity to sort of pre-formulate some things that we might have curiosity about ahead of those presentations.
I have a quick question. I don't know if you'll recall, but I feel like that number is pretty close to where we were last year before we invested the fund balance in it.
Yep.
What is that? Do you recall, or would we have to look? Or Heidi, do you remember? I know with what we put in from the fund balance, it ended up around 4 or something, but I feel like it's like within 0.1% or something of where it was last year.
Feel very familiar.
So, yeah, so we had a high number to start. We went back to the drawing board with principals, with directors. We scrubbed the budget so that we looked at all positions that were in there that hadn't been filled. We removed those. We've added the same amount of fund balance over the last several years, have been pretty flat. And as far as taking that, I think we took it off the overall cost, not just the maintenance of effort budget.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I'm thinking that way. It just feels like, for perspective, if anybody's thinking that, oh, it was 4% last year and we're at 6.5%.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little bit more.
We started pretty high last year too. Evan and I have been looking at different things. We have some things that we think that we might be able to do, but we've got to play things out a little bit.
And I guess my follow-up question would be, do we have any type of time frame on when we think we're going to know what those numbers look like? Any more than what we've,
The principals are presenting this.
sorry, I'm thinking more about the fund balance amount and the audit and.
That's great. Yeah, I can speak to that. First, we're expecting our ED 279 by the end of the month. So that information, that document that we get from the state, will have information about what our subsidy is going to be from the state, and that'll influence potentially how much fund balance we need to pull out. In terms of the audit update, we're still in the 2024 audit. We had a big push last week to get them a lot of documents, including all those fixed asset pieces that I mentioned 2 weeks ago. So the ball is now in the auditor's court, more or less. I think they have a few follow-up questions, but it's not a very substantial amount. I expect that we should have 2024 wrapped up before the end of February at the latest. So we're still making progress, but we don't have a concrete number yet for the fund balance. Yeah, and then we can roll right into 2025. The auditor has already started asking about 2025 things. Like, we'll give them 2024 information. We'll say, well, what about for 2025? And for me, it's like, well, why don't you just finish up 24 before you gather all your information for 25? But to me, that's encouraging because it tells me that they're going to roll right into it and that we can expect them to make some good progress on that.
Yeah, and regarding the sort of 6.89%, that's a big number. We're not alone in that. So RSU 5 had this meeting in December, and their number was just under 10% at the time. And their superintendent made a statement to the effect of, I think, they were going to bring several different drafts trying to get it down, but that I think it was 6% would be like a fundamental reorganization of the district. And so to get you an idea, the kinds of costs that districts across the state have to grapple with, and we are not alone, and we are actually in some ways in a very good position with the work that you guys have been doing. So yeah, 6.89 is a lot. I think we do need to find ways to bring it down, but I think we're at a good starting point when I look at the broader playing field in the state. You know, we could be worse off to start with, you know, and so I'm appreciative of where we are at this point in time at the very least.
I'll continue on to the other slides that I put together, which I think are a little bit more encouraging. Just today, we heard about some retirements, which pulled out $62,000, which is great. The teachers and other staff aren't required to give their retirement notices until the end of March. So to already have about 5 retirements lined up is great for our budget. In years past, particularly last year, I budgeted at a lower educational field or level, excuse me, which is around $55,000. This year, I bumped it up to 72 just because of the type of staff that we were getting. Out of all the teachers we hired last year, they came in at an average of around $72,000 in salary. So I have been budgeting that number, 72,506. And with that number in place, we still have a preliminary change to our maintenance of effort, pulling out $62,000 in these retirements. In addition,
If anyone's listening, that means we're hiring experienced teachers. So that's good.
that is good. That's really good. And then also something that Heidi and I did last year, which was really effective, was looking at all the positions that didn't get filled throughout the year. And already we've been working with directors and principals. We've identified 4 unfilled positions, and I think there's still a little bit of room to go for this. But that resulted in us not choosing to bring those forward into the next fiscal year. We're expected to save $173,000 in unfilled positions. So if you take those two together, it's about $240,000 that I have already pulled out of the maintenance of effort budget, and there's still other ways that we can bring this number down. I'm confident about that, so that brings us down to just about 4.5 or 6.5% increase over last year. So more work to be done.
Could you talk about I missed it when you were talking. There are 5 buses that are being paid off in fiscal year 2026 and proposal to replace 3 buses and 2 vans in 2027. How would that be funded? Would that be leased again?
We fund all of our bus and vehicle purchases through leases. They're 5 years. At the board meeting on Thursday, you'll see on the agenda that there is language to approve leasing for 4 new school buses and at an interest rate of 4.75. Last year, we were at over 5% on our interest rate. But what I'm trying to say is that each year the state requires you to certify how many miles and how many years a school bus has on it. If you go over 120,000 miles, it starts saying, hey, you really need to start replacing that bus. It's getting a bit old. And if it doesn't reach 120,000 miles and it's 10 years old, they still will say, hey, you really need to start thinking about replacing that bus. These are recommendations. I think they're requirements by the state. So we have our fleet of buses that we track closely, and we have 1 full-size handicap bus and 2 minibuses that need replacement, and then the 2 vans as well. Sorry, I'm trying to find my slide here with that debt service. 2 vans that transport special education students need to be replaced.
And I'll add that at least in the years since Amy and I got on the board, we've been aiming to replace 3 to 4 buses per year, roughly, to stay on a 10-year fleet replacement schedule based on exactly what you said, how after 10 years, the state really wants you to do it. So the 3 or 4 per year sort of is part of that regular cycle. So we don't end up in a year we need to do 8 buses, for example, which has happened.
I was gonna say, but that was a reaction to the fact that it did happen, that we
Yeah.
had to replace a bunch.
So, yeah, that's sort of part of the context, at least.
So we can split out the payments over 5 years, and that helps us significantly. The cost of those new buses and vans is already in this maintenance of effort budget, because I assumed that, we need to continue doing that service of replacing these buses. So I suppose we could look at it either as a new request or as maintenance of effort, but I chose to look at it as maintenance of effort because it is a requirement that we have to do, that we have to replace those at some point.
And our applications with the state with those, right? The state helps us with
They
that
do.
purchase process. And we've generally gotten our applications approved, as I recall. I don't think we've had, Amy, tell me if I'm off by,
I think you're right, and I think it's also part of the EPS, isn't it?
Yeah, they give you a certain allocation for school buses as
Yeah.
well.
so hopefully that trend continues.
Yep.
Any other questions at this stage? I think Evan might have one more slide to show us at the very end.
Bear with me as I shuffle through these.
While he shuffles, I will sort of say, I think some of the questions that I'm willing to guess that Heidi and her team will be looking at, and I think us as both a finance committee and as a board will want to think about is emphasizing our student-facing dollars with biggest bang for the buck as we sort of assess what's going on. So it's the mindset I think we're always in, but we're going to be extra in that mindset this year.
I also put this slide together for Region 10. The maintenance of effort budget assumes a 5% increase, but that could change. So looking at an increase at Region 10 of $22,000. That's my last slide, I believe. Yep, that's it.
And that number is based on the average salary between the 3 participating districts, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I know it will have Superintendent Sean Shabbat and Sybil Brewer from Region 10 later in March come to present to the Finance Committee.
And am I correct that an old friend has joined them over there? Isn't Doug Dumont over there now? So there we go. Maybe we can get him to come back to present.
Sybil Brewer.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone have any initial questions? Gregory said, oh, Kim.
Evan, I'm sorry if you spoke to this and I missed it. I'm on your slide 8, the punishingly small font. And I was just catching up on my computer and able to read some of the lines. And I can imagine these are things that get delved into, but there's a couple that seem like they must speak to specific large purchases, equipment down near the bottom.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
Equipment.
there was another one that caught my eye, but we'll start with that one.
Okay, equipment is an interesting one because what falls under this category is everything from facilities equipment. It could be technology related equipment, which I believe is what's driving this increase. We went away from MacBooks at the high school level, replaced them with Chromebooks. We will also have to, my understanding is we'll have to replace more technology this coming fiscal year. And one thing I'm exploring is if we can lease our next purchase of technology so I can bring that equipment line down,
Stretch it out.
stretch it out over a couple of years and put it into, break it out into 3 years or something. It's my understanding that the staff will need new computers as well. And generally we use Apple products for our staff. And I know Nick has mentioned at certain points that we can get education financing, which is 0% from Apple. So those are things that we touched on last week and we're looking through right now. And that's why this is a preliminary MOE where I think that there's still work to be done where we can pull things out or stretch it out over a couple of years.
The other one was course reimbursement. So the other very large percentage increase is obviously the family medical leave, but the line right above it, course reimbursement, what does that refer to?
And so contractually, we have to, I think it's 2 classes per. Yeah,
So
graduate.
this is staff,
Yeah.
professional development. It's not, I wasn't sure if it was like special education stuff. No, okay.
So for this line, last year, it being my first year doing the budget process, I erroneously did not include those costs in the budget.
Ah,
So if we
Okay.
replace those costs in the
I
budget,
see.
it results in a large increase.
a large percentage increase. Okay.
Although the total amount is 1/3%, so even that large increase is palatable.
So
Yeah,
And you were there, right? The costs were there.
some of them were, but not
Not full.
the full amount.
yeah, if you look at FY26, you can see that number decreases, but if you, to Evan's point, sort of ignore that erroneous year of decrease, the trend is pretty reasonable from 169 probably to the equivalent of like 185 to roughly 2,000, so that's pretty.
And the way I calculate this too is that I look at the average number of staff that have taken courses and I calculate it based on the credit hours that USM or UMaine system charges for their graduate level courses. So this isn't just a throw spaghetti at the wall. This is how much I think we're going to do for courses. It's actually driven off of the amount of people who have taken classes historically and then the cost of those courses.
A question we don't have to go into now that we can talk about as we get further in the process. Looking at the substitutes line there, with that 20%, 20+% increase, is that increases in rates or increases in utilization?
Both. You can see last year we did have a dip in the budget from 550 down to 532. I thought that was a little low coming into this year. So with the new paid family medical leave thing on the horizon where we are going to have to be paying more substitutes and the fact that our salaries go up each year to pay for our substitutes,
Yeah.
that is a combination factor there.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
What's good? Yeah, for many years, we've used a placeholder of $80,000 and I noticed that you went to 120, and I suppose part of that is eaten up with the thought of going from 55 to 72. But I'm wondering, is that reflected by the insurance?
Yeah, health insurance would be the big one there. All it takes is someone with, it's cheap when we have single health insurance payments, which can be about $20,000 if you're a single person collecting health insurance. But if you have a family and you're under health insurance, we could be up to $40,000.
So the 120 really is a more realistic figure for today's numbers.
That's what I believe.
Yep.
When we include Medicare payments, paid family medical leave, dental insurance, health insurance, 120 is a little bit more close to where we land.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, it seems like that's our first round of thoughts, first of many. So yeah, I would encourage all of you, as you digest these numbers and think about them, if you have questions you'd like to try and get answers included in presentations, let Evan and I know, or Evan and Heidi and I know, and we can, pass the questions along to the requisite people. ahead of those presentations so that we can learn what we need to learn. Yeah. So after that, I don't think you have any more at this point in time. The one question I had was about the audit, and Ryan asked that question, so I think we're looking good there. Before we go into public comment, any other last thoughts anyone wants to toss out for Evan and Heidi this evening? All right, well, public comment. I don't see anybody here tonight. I will briefly just remind everybody, so we'll next meet a week from today. And at that meeting, we will hear the school presentations I believe, as long as we're still on the schedule that we had originally planned, we'll hear school budgets, we'll hear athletics, and we'll hear special education. So it'll be a lot of groups presenting to us. So come in with your coffee, with your clear thinking brain. We're going to get a lot. And if it's possible, Evan, to get any presentations ahead of time so we have a chance to digest them. I think, again, if they're not ready, we understand, but if they are, I think we would all appreciate getting to look at them ahead of time just so we have a little more focus. And for anyone at home, these presentations are great because I really love hearing these departments in particular. These are all very direct student contact departments, obviously school principals, special education, athletics, and it's really great hearing about both the work that those administrators have been doing with their staff in direct support of students and what they're thinking about their priorities for the coming years. So it's I get a lot out of this. I get a lot of all this, but this one in particular is always really gratifying. So anyone who's listening, other board members, that's one to come to. Other than that, after that meeting, we'll be back on Monday, February 2nd. And then the 9th after that. So we're in the regular phase starting this week, everybody. So thank you all very much. We're going to give you back an hour of your evening. Drive safely and have a good night.